Reading of the most set-apart Scripture, Genesis through Revelation. The third book of the Torah, Wayyiqra, also known as Leviticus. Chapter 22. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, that they separate themselves from the set-apart offerings of the children of Israel, and that they do not profane my set-apart name in what they set apart to me. I am Yahuwah. Say to them, any man of all your offspring throughout your generations who draws near the set-apart offerings, which the children of Israel set apart to Yahuwah, while he has uncleanness upon him, that being shall be cut off from before me. I am Yahuwah. Any man of the offspring of Aaron who is a leper or has a discharge does not eat the set-apart offerings until he is clean. And whoever touches what is rendered unclean by a being, or a man who has had an emission of semen, or a man who touches any swarming creature by which he would be made unclean, or any being by whom he would become unclean, even any of his uncleanness, the being who has touched it shall be unclean until evening, and does not eat the set-apart offerings, but shall bathe his body in water. And when the sun goes down, he shall be clean, and afterward eat the set-apart offerings, because it is his food. He does not eat that which dies or is torn by beast, becoming unclean by it. I am Yahuwah. And they shall guard my charge, lest they bear sin for it and die thereby, when they profane it. I, Yahuwah, set them apart. And no stranger eats the set-apart offering. A settler with the priest or a hired servant does not eat the set-apart offering. But when the priest buys a being with his silver, he does eat of it, and one who is born in his house does eat his food. And when a priest's daughter is married to a stranger, she does not eat of the set-apart offerings. But when a priest's daughter is a widow or put away and has no child, and has returned to her father's house, as in her youth, she does eat her father's food, but no stranger eats of it. And when a man eats the set-apart offering by mistake, then he shall give a set-apart offering to the priest and add 1/5 to it. And let the priest not profane the set-apart offerings of the children of Israel, which they lift up to Yahuwah, or allow them to bear the crookedness of trespass when they eat their set-apart offerings. For I am Yahuwah, who sets them apart. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, and to all the children of Israel, and say to them, any man of the house of Israel, or of the sojourners in Israel, who brings his offering for any of his vows, or for any of his voluntary offerings, which they bring to Yahuwah as an ascending offering, for your acceptance, is a male, a perfect one from the cattle, from the sheep, or from the goats. Whatever has a defect, you do not bring, for it is not acceptable for you. And when a man brings a slaughtering of peace offerings to Yahuwah to complete a vow, or a voluntary offering from the cattle or the sheep, It is to be perfect, to be accepted. Let there be no defect in it. Those blind, or broken, or cut, or having an ulcer, or eczema, or scabs, you do not bring to Yahuwah, nor make an offering by fire of them on the slaughter place to Yahuwah. As for a bull or a lamb that has any limb deformed or dwarfed, you do prepare as a voluntary offering, but for a vow it is not accepted. Do not bring to Yahuwah what is bruised, or crushed, or torn, or cut, nor do it in your land. And from a son of a foreigner's hand you do not bring any of these as the bread of your Elohim, for their corruption is in them, and defects are in them. They are not acceptable for you. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, when a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall be 7 days with its mother, and from the 8th day, and thereafter it is acceptable as an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. But do not slay a cow or a sheep and its young on the same day. And when your slaughter or slaughtering of thanksgiving to Yahuwah, slaughter it for your acceptance. It is eaten that same day. Leave none of it till morning. I am Yahuwah. And you shall guard my commands and do them. I am Yahuwah. And do not profane my set apart name, and I shall be set apart among the children of Yisrael. I am Yahuwah, who sets you apart, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim to be your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. Chapter 23. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Yisrael, and say to them, the appointed times of Yahuwah, which you are to proclaim as set apart gatherings. My appointed times are these: 6 days' work is done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of rest, a set apart gathering. You do no work. It is a Sabbath to Yahuwah in all your dwellings. These are the appointed times of Yahuwah, set apart gatherings which you are to proclaim at their appointed times. In the first new moon, on the 14th day of the new moon, between the evenings, is the Pesach to Yahuwah. And on the 15th day of this new moon is the festival of Matzot to Yahuwah. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. On the first day you have a set apart gathering. You do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah for 7 days. On the seventh day is a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Yisrael, and you shall say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest, and he shall wave the sheaf before Yahuwah for your acceptance. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest waves it. And on that day, when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb, a year old, a perfect one, as an ascending offering to Yahuwah. And its grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, a sweet fragrance, and its drink offering, 1/4 of a hin of wine. And you do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim, a law forever throughout your generations, in all your dwellings. And from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you shall count for yourselves 7 completed Sabbaths, until the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, you count 50 days. Then you shall bring a new grain offering to Yahuwah. Bring from your dwellings for a wave offering 2 loaves of bread, of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour. They are baked. They are baked with leaven, first fruits to Yahuwah. And besides the bread, you shall bring 7 lambs, a year old, perfect ones, and 1 young bull, and 2 rams. They are an ascending offering to Yahuwah, with their grain offering and their drink offerings, and offering made by fire for a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah. And you shall offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, and 2 male lambs a year old as a slaughter of peace offerings. And the priest shall wave them, besides the bread of the first fruits, as a wave offering before Yahuwah, besides the 2 lambs. They are set apart to Yahuwah for the priest. And on this same day you shall proclaim a set apart gathering for yourselves. You do no servile work on it, a law forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. And when you reap the harvest of your land, do not completely reap the corners of your field when you reap, and do not gather any gleaning from your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Yisrael, saying, In the 7th new moon, on the first day of the new moon, you have a rest, a remembrance of Teruah, a set apart gathering. You do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, On the 10th day of the 7th new moon is Yom HaKippurim. It shall be a set apart gathering for you, and you shall afflict your beings, and shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. And you do no work on that same day, for it is Yom Kippurim, to make an atonement for you before Yahuwah your Elohim. For any being who is not afflicted on that same day, he shall be cut off from his people. And any being who does any work on that same day, that being I shall destroy from the midst of his people. You do no work, a law forever, throughout your generations, in all your dwellings. It is a Sabbath of rest to you, and you shall afflict your beings. On the 9th day of the new moon, at evening, from evening to evening, you observe your Sabbath. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Yisrael, saying, "On the 15th day of this seventh new moon is the festival of Sukkot, for 7 days to Yahuwah. On the first day is a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work. For 7 days you bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. On the 8th day there shall be a set-apart gathering for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. It is a closing festival. You do no servile work. These are the appointed times of Yahuwah, which you proclaim as set-apart gatherings, to bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, an ascending offering, and a grain offering, a slaughtering, and drink offerings, as commanded for every day. Besides the Sabbaths of Yahuwah, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your voluntary offerings, which you give to Yahuwah. On the 15th day of the seventh new moon, when you gather in the fruit of the land, celebrate the festival of Yahuwah for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the 8th day a rest. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of good trees, branches of palm trees, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim for 7 days. And you shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahuwah for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generations. Celebrate it in the seventh new moon. Dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native born in Yisrael dwell in booths, so that your generations know that I made the children of Yisrael dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Thus did Moshe speak of the appointed times of Yahuwah to the children of Yisrael. Chapter 24. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, "Command the children of Yisrael that they bring to you clear oil of pressed olives for the light to make the lamps burn continually outside the veil of the witness in the tent of appointment. Aaron is to arrange it from evening until morning before Yahuwah continually, a law forever throughout your generations. He is to arrange the lamps on the clean gold lampstand before Yahuwah continually. And you shall take fine flour and bake 12 cakes with it, 2/10 of an ephah in each cake. And you shall set them in 2 rows, 6 in a row, on the clean table before Yahuwah. And you shall put clear frankincense on each row, and it shall be on the bread as a remembrance portion, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. On every Sabbath he is to arrange it before Yahuwah continually from the children of Yisrael, an everlasting covenant. And it shall be for Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in the set-apart place, because it is most set apart to him from the offerings of Yahuwah made by fire, and an everlasting law. And the son of an Yisraelite woman, whose father was a Mitzrayite man, went out among the children of Yisrael, And the Yisraelite woman's son and a man of Yisrael strove in the camp. And the Yisraelite woman's son blasphemed the name and cursed. So they brought him to Moshe. Now his mother's name was Shelomith, the daughter of Dibri, of the tribe of Dan. And they put him under guard that it might be declared to them at the mouth of Yahuwah. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Bring the one who has cursed outside the camp, and all those who heard him to lay their hands on his head, and all the congregation shall stone him. And speak to the children of Yisrael, saying, Any one who curses his Elohim shall bear his sin. And he who blasphemes the name of Yahuwah shall certainly be put to death, and all the congregation certainly stone him, the sojourner as well as the native. When he blasphemes the name, he is put to death. And a man who strikes the being of any man shall certainly be put to death. And he who strikes a beast repays it, body for body. And when a man inflicts a blemish upon his neighbor, as he has done, so it is done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. As he inflicts a blemish upon him, so it is done to him. And he who strikes a beast repays it, and he who strikes a man to death is put to death. You are to have one right ruling for the sojourner and for the native, for I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. And Moshe spoke to the children of Yisrael, and they brought the one who cursed outside the camp and stoned him with stones. And the children of Yisrael did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe. Chapter 25. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, saying, Speak to the children of Yisrael, and say to them, When you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall observe a Sabbath to Yahuwah. 6 years you sow your field, and 6 years you prune your vineyard, and gather in its fruit. But in the seventh year the land is to have a Sabbath of rest, a Sabbath to Yahuwah. Do not sow your field, and do not prune your vineyard. Do not reap what grows of its own of your harvest, and do not gather the grapes of your unpruned vine, for it is a year of rest for the land. And the Sabbath of the land shall be to you for food, for you and your servant, and for your female servant, and your hired servant, and for the settler who sojourns with you, and for your livestock, and the beasts that are in your land. All its crops are for food. And you shall count 7 Sabbaths of years for yourself, 7 times 7 years, and the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be to you 49 years. You shall then sound a shofar, sound on the 10th day of the seventh new moon, on Yom HaKippurim. Cause a shofar to sound through all your land, and you shall set the 50th year apart, and proclaim release throughout all the land to all its inhabitants. It is a Yobel for you, and each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you return to his clan. The 50th year is a Yobel to you. Do not sow, nor reap what grows of its own, nor gather from its unpruned vine. It is a Yobel. It is set apart to you. Eat from the field its crops. In the year of this Yobel, let each one of you return to his possession. And when you sell whatever to your neighbor or buy from the hand of your neighbor, do not exploit one another. According to the number of years after the Yobel, you buy from your neighbor, and according to the number of years of crops he sells to you. According to the greater number of years, you increase its price, and according to the fewer number of years, you diminish its price, because he sells to you according to the number of the years of the crops. And do not oppress one another, but you shall fear your Elohim, for I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. And you shall do my laws and guard my right rulings, and shall do them. And you shall dwell in the land in safety, and the land shall yield its fruit, and you shall eat to satisfaction, and shall dwell there in safety. And since you might say, what do we eat in the 7th year, since we do not sow nor gather in our crops? Therefore, I have commanded my blessing on you in the 6th year, and it shall bring forth the crop for 3 years. And you shall sow in the 8th year, and eat of the old crop until the 9th year. Eat of the old until its crop comes in. And the land is not to be sold beyond reclaim, for the land is mine, for you are sojourners and settlers with me. And provide for a redemption for the land in all the land of your possession. When your brother becomes poor and has sold some of his possession, and his redeemer, a close relative, comes to redeem it, then he shall redeem what his brother sold. And when the man has no one to redeem it, but he himself becomes able to redeem it, then let him count the years since its sale and return the remainder to the man to whom he sold it, that he shall return to his possession. And if his hand has not found enough to give back to him, then what was sold shall remain in the hand of him who bought it until the year of Yobel, and it shall be released in the Yobel, and he shall return to his possession. And when a man sells a house in a walled city, then his right of redemption shall be at the end of the year after it is sold. His right of redemption lasts a year. But if it is not redeemed within a complete year, then the house in the walled city shall be established beyond reclaim to the buyer of it throughout his generations. It is not released in the Yobel. The houses of villages, however, which have no wall around them, are reckoned as the field of the country. A right of redemption belongs to it, and they are released in the Yobel. As for the cities of the Levites and the houses in the cities of their possession, the Levites have a right of redemption forever. And that which is redeemed from the Levites, both the sale of a house and the city of his possession, shall be released in the year of Yobel, because of the houses in the cities of the Levites are their possession in the midst of the children of Israel. But the field of the open land of their cities is not sold, for it is their everlasting possession. And when your brother becomes poor, and his hand has failed with you, then you shall strengthen him, and he shall live with you like a sojourner or a settler. Take no interest from him or profit, but you shall fear your Elohim, and your brother shall live with you. Do not lend him your silver on interest, and do not lend him your food for profit. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, to give you the land of Canaan, to be your Elohim. And when your brother who dwells by you becomes poor and sells himself to you, do not make him serve as a slave, but as a hired servant, as a settler he is with you, and serves you until the year of Yobel, and then he shall leave you, he and his children with him, and shall return to his own clan, even return to the possession of his fathers. For they are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Mitzrayim. They are not sold as slaves. Do not rule over them. Do not rule over him with harshness, but you shall fear your Elohim. And your male and female slaves, whom you have from the nations that are around you, from them you buy male and female slaves, and also from the sons of the strangers settling among you, from them you buy, and from their clans you are with, and from their clans who are with you, which they shall bring forth in your land, and they shall be your property. And you shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them as a possession. They are your slaves for all time. But over your brothers, the children of Israel, you do not rule with harshness, one over another. Now, when a sojourner or a settler with you becomes rich, and your brother with him becomes poor, and sells himself to the sojourner or settler with you, or to a member of the sojourner's clan, after he has been sold, there is a right of redemption to him. One of his brothers does redeem him, or his uncle, or his uncle's son does redeem him, or anyone who is a close relative to him in his clan does redeem him. Or if he is able, then he shall redeem himself, and he shall reckon with him who bought him. The price of his release shall be according to the number of years, from the year that he was sold to him until the year of Yobel, as the days of a hired servant. It is with him. If there are yet many years, according to them, he repays the price of his redemption from the silver of his purchase. And if few years are left until the year of Yobel, then he shall reckon with him, and according to his years he repays him the price of his redemption. He is with him as a yearly hired servant, and he does not rule with harshness over him before your eyes. And if he is not redeemed in these years, then he shall be released in the year of Yobel, he and his children with him. Because the children of Israel are servants to me, they are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Chapter 26. Do not make idols for yourselves, and do not set up a carved image or a pillar for yourselves, and do not place a stone image in your land to bow down to it. For I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Guard my Sabbaths and reverence my set apart place. I am Yahuwah. If you walk in my laws and guard my commands and shall do them, then I shall give you rain in its season, and the land shall yield its crops, and the trees of the field yield their fruit, and your threshing shall last till the time of the grape harvest, and the grape harvest shall last till the time of sowing, and you shall eat your bread until you have enough, and shall dwell in your land safely. And I shall give peace in the land, and you shall lie down, and no one make you afraid. And I shall clear the land of evil beasts, and not let the sword go through your land. And you shall pursue your enemies, and they shall fall by the sword before you. And 5 of you shall pursue 100, and 100 of you pursue 10,000, and your enemies shall fall by the sword before you. And I shall turn to you and make you fruitful, and shall increase you, and shall establish my covenant with you. And you shall eat the old supply and clear out the old because of the new. And I shall set my dwelling place in your midst, and my being shall not reject you. And I shall walk in your midst, and shall be your Elohim, and you shall be my people. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, from being their slaves, and I have broken the bars of your yoke, and made you walk upright. But if you do not obey me, and do not do all these commands, and if you reject my laws, or if your being loathes my right rulings, so that you do not do all my commands, but break my covenant, I also do this to you, and I shall appoint sudden alarm over you, wasting, disease, and inflammation, destroying the eyes and consuming the life. And you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. And I shall set my face against you, and you shall be smitten before your enemies. And those who hate you shall rule over you, and you shall flee when no one pursues you. And after all this, if you do not obey me, then I shall punish you 7 times more for your sins, and I shall break the pride of your power, and shall make your heavens like iron, and your earth like bronze, and your strength shall be spent in vain, and your land not yield its crops, nor the trees of the land yield their fruit. And if you walk contrary to me and refuse to obey me, I shall bring on you 7 times more plagues according to your sins, and send wild beasts among you, which shall bereave you of your children. And I shall cut off your livestock and make you few in number, and your highways shall be deserted. And if you are not instructed by me by these, but walk contrary to me, then I also shall walk contrary to you, and I myself shall strike you 7 times for your sins. And I will bring on you an avenging sword, a covenant vengeance, and you shall gather together in your cities And I shall send pestilence among you, and you shall be given into the hand of the enemy. When I have cut off your supply of bread, 10 women shall bake your bread in one oven, and they shall bring back to you your bread by weight, and you shall eat and not be satisfied. And if, in spite of this, you do not obey me, but walk contrary to me, then I shall walk contrary to you in wrath, and I myself shall punish you 7 times for your sins. And you shall eat the flesh of your sons, and eat the flesh of your daughters. And I shall destroy your high places, and cut down your sun pillars, and put your carcasses on the carcasses of your idols, and my being shall loathe you. And I shall turn your cities into ruins, and lay your set apart places waste, and not smell your sweet fragrances. And I shall lay the land waste, and your enemies who dwell in it shall be astonished at it. And I shall scatter you among the nations, and draw out a sword after you, and your land shall be deserted, and your cities ruins, and the land enjoys its Sabbaths as long as it lies waste, and you are in your enemy's land. Then the land would rest and enjoy its Sabbaths. As long as it lies waste, it rests for the time it did not rest on your Sabbaths when you dwelt in it. And as for those of you who are left, I shall send faintness into their hearts in the lands of their enemies, and the sound of a shaken leaf shall cause them to flee, and they shall flee as though retreating from a sword, and they shall fall when no one pursues, and they shall stumble over one another as from before a sword when no one pursues. And you shall be unable to stand before your enemies, and you shall perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies shall eat you up, and those of you who are left rot away in their crookedness in your enemies' lands, and also in their fathers' crookedness rot away with them. But if they confess their crookedness and the crookedness of their fathers, with their trespass in which they trespassed against me, and that they also have walked contrary to me, and that I also have walked contrary to them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies, if their uncircumcised heart is then humbled, and they accept the punishment of their crookedness, then I shall remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Yishak, and also remember my covenant with Abraham, and remember the land. For the land was abandoned by them, and enjoying its Sabbaths, while lying waste without them. And they were paying for their crookedness, because they rejected my right rulings, and because their being loathed my laws. And yet, for all this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I shall not reject them, nor shall I loathe them, so as to destroy them and break my covenant with them. For I am Yahuwah, their Elohim. Then I shall remember for their sake the covenant of the ancestors whom I brought out of the land of Mitzrayim before the eyes of the nations to be their Elohim. I am Yahuwah. These are the laws and the right rulings and the Torah which Yahuwah made between himself and the children of Yisrael on Mount Sinai by the hand of Moshe. Chapter 27. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Yisrael, and say to them, when a man separates a vow by your evaluation of lives unto Yahuwah, when your evaluation is of a male from 20 years old up to 60 years old, then your evaluation shall be 50 shekels of silver, according to the shekel of the set apart place. And if it is a female, then your evaluation shall be 30 shekels. And if from 5 years old up to 20 years old, then your evaluation for a male shall be 20 shekels, and for a female 10 shekels. And if from a new moon old up to 5 years old, then your evaluation for a male shall be 5 shekels of silver, and for a female your evaluation shall be 3 shekels of silver. And if from 60 years old and above, if it is a male, then your evaluation shall be 15 shekels, and for a female 10 shekels. But if he is too poor to pay your evaluation, then he shall present himself before the priest, and the priest shall set a value for him, according to the ability of him who vowed. The priest shall value him. And if it is a beast of which they bring an offering to Yahuwah, all such given to Yahuwah is set apart. He is not to replace it or exchange it, good for spoilt, or spoilt for good. And if he at all exchanges beast for beast, then both it and the one exchanged for it is set apart. And if it is an unclean beast of which they do not bring an offering to Yahuwah, then he shall present the beast before the priest, and the priest shall value it, whether it is good or spoilt, according to your evaluation, O priest, so it shall be. But if he indeed redeems it, then he shall add 1/5 to your evaluation. And when a man sets his house apart to be set apart to Yahuwah, then the priest shall value it, whether it is good or spoilt, as the priest values it, so it stands. And if he who sets it apart does redeem his house, then he shall add 1/5 of the silver of your evaluation to it, and it shall be his. And if a man sets apart to Yahuwah a field he owns, then your evaluation shall be according to the seed for it, a homer of barley, seed at 50 shekels of silver. If he sets his field apart from the year of Yobel, according to your evaluation, it stands. But if he sets his field apart after the Yobel, then the priest shall reckon to him the silver due according to the years that remain till the year of Yobel, and it shall be deducted from your evaluation. And if he who sets the field apart will indeed redeem it, then he shall add 1/5 of the silver of your evaluation to it, and it shall be his. And if he does not redeem the field, or if he has sold the field to another man, it is no longer redeemed, but the field, when it is released in the Yobel, is set apart to Yahuwah as a dedicated field. to be the possession of the priest. And if a man sets apart to Yahuwah a field which he has bought, which is not the field of his possession, then the priest shall reckon to him the amount of your evaluation up to the year of Yobel, and he shall give your evaluation on that day set apart to Yahuwah. In the year of Yobel, the field returns to him from whom he bought it, to him whose is the possession of the land. And all your evaluations are to be according to the shekel of the set apart place, 20 gerahs to the shekel. However, a firstborn of the beast, which is firstborn to Yahuwah, no man sets it apart, whether bull or sheep, it belongs to Yahuwah. And if among the unclean beast, then he shall ransom it according to your evaluation, and shall add 1/5 to it. And if it is not redeemed, then it shall be sold according to your evaluation. However, whatever a man lays under ban for Yahuwah of all that he has, man and beast, or the field of his possession, is not sold or redeemed. Whatever is laid under ban is most set apart to Yahuwah. No one under the ban among men is ransomed, but shall certainly be put to death. And all the tithe of the land, of the seed of the land, or of the fruit of the tree belongs to Yahuwah. It is set apart to Yahuwah. If a man indeed redeems any of his tithes, he adds 1/5 to it, and the entire tithe of the herd and of the flock, all that passes under the rod, the 10th one is set apart to Yahuwah. He does not inquire whether it is good or spoilt, nor does he exchange it. And if he exchanges it at all, then both it and the one exchanged for it are set apart. It is not redeemed. These are the commands which Yahuwah commanded Moshe for the children of Yisrael on Mount Sinai. The end of Leviticus.